In a world where gods reign supreme and titans shake the earth, one forgotten Cyclops rises from the shadows. Betrayed, imprisoned, and seeking vengeance, Arges returns with a plan that could bring Olympus to its knees. The gods are not ready for what's coming. Will the heavens survive, or will a new ruler emerge from the depths? Prepare for an epic clash of power, betrayal, and destiny. Long before humans roamed the earth, the universe was dominated by primordial forces. The gods, titans, and other ancient beings ruled every corner of existence. Among these powerful entities were the Cyclopes, giant one-eyed creatures born from the union of Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. Of the Cyclopes, 3 brothers stood out: Arges, Brontes, and Steropes. Each possessed immense strength and unique abilities tied to the elemental forces of nature. Arges, however, was different. Beyond his brute strength and crafting skill, he possessed the gift of foresight, a vision that allowed him to see beyond the present, into the future. The Cyclopes played a critical role in the balance of power among the gods. They were master blacksmiths, unrivaled in their craft, and it was they who forged the mighty weapons of the Olympian gods. Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident, and Hades's helm of darkness were all the work of the Cyclopes. Arges, the most talented of his brothers, was the mind behind these legendary creations. The gods often visited the Cyclopes' forges, deep within the heart of volcanic mountains, to commission new weapons or strengthen their armor. Despite their essential role, the Cyclopes were never seen as equals by the gods. They were viewed as tools, useful but dangerous. Arges, with his vision, knew this truth all too well. As his creations became more powerful, he noticed a change in the gods' behavior. Zeus, in particular, grew wary of the Cyclopes. He knew that the same hands that had forged his thunderbolt could just as easily forge weapons that might dethrone him. The Olympians had risen to power by overthrowing the Titans, and they had no desire to face a similar threat from the Cyclopes. Arges' suspicions were soon confirmed when, under the guise of friendship, Zeus invited the Cyclopes to Olympus for a grand feast. Arges, Brontes, and Steropes were honored by the invitation, unaware of the betrayal that awaited them. As they sat among the gods, dining and celebrating, Zeus enacted his plan. He called upon the might of the other Olympians to trap the Cyclopes. With their combined power, Zeus and his siblings bound the Cyclopes in chains made of divine metal, impossible to break. The once thriving forges of the Cyclopes fell silent, and their mighty hammers were stilled. Imprisoned in the depths of Tartarus, the Cyclopes were cast into a realm of eternal darkness and despair. It was a punishment meant to keep them out of the affairs of the gods forever. Arges, however, refused to be broken. Though chained and bound, his mind was free, and his foresight remained intact. In the darkness of Tartarus, Arges saw visions of the future, visions of revenge. He knew that his time would come, and when it did, he would rise more powerful than ever before. Centuries passed, and the Cyclopes remained in their dark prison, forgotten by the gods. But while Brontes and Steropes succumbed to the despair of their captivity, Arges' mind remained sharp. He studied the movements of time, the ebb and flow of divine power, and the rise of mortal heroes. His foresight showed him the day when a mortal would come seeking the power of the Cyclopes, and it was then that Arges' revenge would begin. That day came in the form of Calyptus, a young and ambitious hero seeking to prove himself worthy of divine favor. Calyptus had heard legends of the Cyclopes, of their strength, their mastery of the forge, and their role in shaping the weapons of the gods. But unlike others who feared these ancient beings, Calyptus believed that freeing the Cyclopes would grant him untold power and the favor of the gods. Calyptus's journey to the depths of Tartarus was long and treacherous. He battled through hordes of monsters, crossed rivers of fire, and navigated the maze-like caverns of the underworld. At last, he found the Cyclopes, chained and forgotten, their once glorious forms now weakened by centuries of imprisonment. But even in his weakened state, Arges' presence was commanding. His single eye, glowing faintly in the dark, fixed upon Calyptus with a piercing gaze. Arges wasted no time in making his offer. He knew the heart of a mortal and understood Calyptus's desire for power. The Cyclops promised that, in exchange for his freedom, he would forge weapons of unparalleled strength for Calyptus, tools that would make him a hero among men and a favored champion of the gods. Tempted by the promise of power, Olympus agreed, and with a powerful blow, he shattered the chains that bound Arges. As soon as Arges was free, a shift in the air could be felt. The very essence of Tartarus trembled as the Cyclops stood tall once more. He quickly freed his brothers, Brontes and Steropes, and together they began their ascent from the underworld. But Arges had no intention of keeping his promise to Olympus. The mortal had served his purpose, and now, Arges' only focus was revenge. The gods had cast him into the darkest depths of Tartarus, and now it was time for them to pay. As the Cyclopes emerged from the underworld, the mortal world trembled at their return. Arges, now stronger and more focused than ever, began to set his plan in motion. But this time, brute strength alone would not be enough to defeat the gods. The Cyclops had learned patience during his time in Tartarus, and his foresight showed him a path not of immediate destruction, but of calculated, slow-burning revenge. Arges understood that to defeat the Olympians, he would need more than just his brothers. He would need allies, powerful beings who also harbored resentment against the gods. He would need to weaken the gods' influence over the mortal world, sowing chaos and discord among their followers. And, most importantly, he would need to exploit the weaknesses of the gods themselves, striking when they were at their most vulnerable. With his eye set on Olympus, Arges began his campaign of vengeance. His first move was subtle, almost unnoticeable. He used his foresight to manipulate events in the mortal world, causing kingdoms to rise and fall, wars to ignite, and natural disasters to strike at opportune moments. These seemingly random events were all part of Arges' larger plan to weaken the gods' control over the mortal realm. As the gods became more and more distracted by the chaos unfolding in the mortal world, Arges gathered his forces. He sought out the giants, the primordial spirits of the earth, and the dark beings that dwelled in the deepest parts of the underworld. One by one, they pledged their allegiance to the Cyclops, eager for the chance to topple the gods who had wronged them. Arges' army grew, and with it, his power. But he knew that the final confrontation with the Olympians was still far off. For now, he would continue to strike from the shadows, biding his time until the moment was right. And when that moment came, Olympus itself would fall. The stage was set for a new era of conflict, an era where the gods would face a threat unlike any they had ever encountered. And at the center of it all was Arges, the Cyclops, whose eye gleamed with the power of foresight and revenge. Arges knew that his plan for vengeance could not be rushed. The gods were mighty and vigilant, their power entrenched in every aspect of existence. A direct assault would only result in defeat. To overthrow the gods, Arges needed to break them from within, divide them, weaken their alliances, and turn their power against them. His foresight revealed that their downfall would not come from brute force, but from betrayal and chaos. As time passed, Arges continued to manipulate events in the mortal world. He orchestrated conflicts between kingdoms, fueling war and strife, sowing seeds of distrust among the gods' mortal followers. The prayers that once flooded Olympus with adoration were now tinged with desperation and fear. Mortals began to question the gods' power as disasters and plagues ravaged the land. The once ceaseless offerings and sacrifices to the gods grew scarce, weakening their influence over the mortal realm. Yet, even as chaos spread, Arges knew that the Olympians would not fall so easily. Their strength was rooted not just in mortal worship, but in their divine bonds with one another. To truly weaken them, Arges had to fracture these bonds, sow discord among the gods themselves. The Cyclops' first target was Hera, the queen of the gods and wife of Zeus. Hera had long harbored resentment toward Zeus, who had been unfaithful to her on countless occasions, fathering children with mortals and goddesses alike. Arges exploited this resentment, using his foresight to plant whispers of Zeus's latest betrayal in Hera's ear. He revealed to her a vision of Zeus consorting with a mortal woman, promising that their union would produce a child destined to overthrow Olympus. Blinded by jealousy and rage, Hera sought revenge. She cursed the unborn child, ensuring that it would never rise to power. Yet in doing so, she also distanced herself from Zeus, sowing mistrust between them. The unity that once held the Olympians together began to crumble. Next, Arges turned his attention to Poseidon, god of the sea. Poseidon had always envied his brother Zeus for his position as king of the gods. Arges stoked this envy, using his foresight to show Poseidon a future where he, not Zeus, sat upon the throne of Olympus. Poseidon, driven by ambition, began to plot in secret, gathering allies among the other gods who shared his discontent. As divisions grew among the Olympians, Arges continued to build his forces. He sought out allies from the darkest corners of the underworld, beings long forgotten by the gods, who harbored ancient grudges. Among them was Typhon, a monstrous titan who had once challenged Zeus for control of Olympus. Typhon had been defeated and imprisoned deep within the earth, but with the help of the Cyclopes, Arges freed him from his bonds. Typhon, towering and filled with rage, pledged his allegiance to Arges. With Typhon's strength and the Cyclopes' cunning, Arges now had the power to challenge the gods. But he knew that even with his newfound army, the battle ahead would not be easy. The Olympians were still powerful, and they would not fall without a fight. The time had come for the final stage of Arges' plan. He sent word to Zeus, challenging him to a battle for the fate of Olympus. The Cyclopes and their allies would face the gods in a climactic showdown, a battle that would determine the future of the universe. Zeus, though wary of Arges' growing power, accepted the challenge. He could not allow a rebellion to go unchecked, for it would signal weakness to the rest of the gods. He summoned the Olympians to prepare for war. Poseidon, Hera, Athena, and Apollo stood by his side, though the cracks in their unity were clear. Suspicion and mistrust lingered between them, the seeds of doubt sown by Arges now bearing fruit. The battlefield was set on the plains of Phlegra, a desolate wasteland where the gods had once fought the giants in ancient times. The ground trembled as the armies of both sides gathered. On one side, the Olympians, their radiant forms gleaming in the light of the sun; on the other, Arges, leading a force of Cyclopes, titans, and monstrous creatures from the underworld. At his side stood Typhon, his fiery eyes burning with hatred for the gods. The battle began with a deafening roar as the two armies clashed. Thunderbolts hurled from Zeus's hands, striking the earth with terrifying force. Poseidon summoned massive waves from the sea, crashing them against the ranks of the Cyclopes. Arrows of light shot from Apollo's bow, and Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, led the charge with her spear in hand. But Arges had anticipated the gods' moves. Using his foresight, he had crafted weapons specifically designed to counter the Olympians' powers. His brothers, Brontes and Steropes, wielded hammers that could deflect Zeus's thunderbolts, and the monstrous Typhon used his titanic strength to shatter Poseidon's waves. The battle was fierce, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. As the fighting raged on, Arges watched from the sidelines, his single eye focused on Zeus. The time had come to confront the king of the gods directly. With a booming voice, Arges called out to Zeus, challenging him to single combat. Zeus, filled with rage at the betrayal of the Cyclopes, accepted. The two titans of power faced each other on the battlefield, their clash shaking the very foundations of the world. Lightning flashed from Zeus's hands as Arges swung his mighty hammer, each blow creating shockwaves that echoed across the land. But Arges had one final trick up his sleeve. His foresight had revealed to him Zeus's greatest weakness, his arrogance. The king of the gods believed himself invincible, and in his pride, he had not foreseen the betrayal that was about to occur. At the height of their battle, as Zeus prepared to strike Arges down with a thunderbolt, Poseidon, driven by his own ambition, turned against his brother. In a sudden and shocking move, Poseidon attacked Zeus from behind, sending him crashing to the ground. The king of the gods, stunned by the betrayal, was vulnerable. Arges seized the opportunity. With a powerful swing of his hammer, he struck Zeus, knocking the thunderbolt from his hand. The sky darkened as the power of the thunderbolt faded, and for the first time in eons, Zeus lay defeated. But Arges' victory was not yet complete. The gods, though weakened, were still dangerous. Hera, Athena, and Apollo rushed to Zeus's aid, their divine power reigniting the battle. Arges, though powerful, knew he could not fight them all at once. With Typhon by his side, he unleashed a final, devastating attack, a storm of fire and lightning that engulfed the battlefield. In the chaos, the Olympians were forced to retreat. Zeus, battered and humiliated, was carried from the field by his allies. The Cyclopes had won the battle, but Arges knew that the war was far from over. The gods would return, and when they did, they would bring the full force of their wrath. Yet, in his heart, Arges felt a sense of triumph. He had shown the gods that they were not invincible. He had shattered their unity, weakened their power, and proven that even the mightiest could fall. The era of the Cyclopes had begun, and the gods would never again look upon them as mere tools. As the dust settled and the battlefield grew quiet, Arges gazed toward Olympus, his single eye gleaming with the power of foresight. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: the age of the gods was coming to an end, and a new era of chaos and rebellion had begun. As we've seen in the tale of Arges, even in the face of overwhelming power, perseverance and cunning can turn the tide. Just like the Cyclops, each of us holds the strength to challenge the impossible and shape our own destiny. Let this story inspire you to stand tall against any odds, and remember, every great journey begins with a single step. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more epic adventures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let's conquer new horizons together.